Hi guys, it's Zach with Procrastination Station. I know it's been a hot minute. There've been some life changes, as you can see, coming back in now that we're set up in the new place, and got everything kind of settled down and getting back into the videos. So this video is going to be basically not necessarily a tutorial, but more so how to delve into maintenance on your AEGs or troubleshooting maybe some old MOSFET systems. So I'm going to jump right in. Thank you guys. We'll delve right on into it.
All right, guys. So what we have here is our personal Arcturus pp19 that has been converted to take AK. So we've confirmed that we're clear. We've done our test firing. Basically, all I'm going to do today is kind of talk about maintenance. That's basically it. The few things that I look for. This rifle has about probably the bar part, but like 150, 200,000 rounds on it. Still shoots great. Still looks great. I don't have any sort of inconsistency. I'm just kind of gonna go in and just make sure everything's great, re-grease, and check our O-rings and stuff. This isn't gonna be a teardown. If you want a teardown video, I'll absolutely do that. But I'm basically just gonna have the gearbox in front of me, and then show you kind of what I'm gonna look at for maintenance items. All right. Now that my gearbox is removed, there's a few things that we're gonna look at before we delve into our gearbox. The first thing that I'm gonna look at is our wires. Is there any fraying, any sort of exposed wiring? This looks pretty good. I noticed just this one spot, it looks like there's a little bit of a pinch right here. But I will kind of address that when I reinstall the rifle. It doesn't look like something that I'm going to have to rewire the entire rifle for. Other than that, really the only other thing I'm going to look at is there any sort of bearing wobble? I don't see any. Trigger feels good. Looks like on this MOSFET system, I'm not missing my selector. It looks like everything kind of has its place and nothing looks out of the ordinary. Looks like our motor's great. I still have some spring tension on my nozzle. Really not seeing a whole lot that would be alarming. And then just kind of go through our next steps here. So now that I know I do have some wire damage, I'll work on that. The next tidbit, like I said, getting ahead of myself here. I'm gonna remove my spring. The Arcturus has this little, there's our spring guide. I'm gonna look at our bearings and make sure that if it is a two-piece system, that nothing is broken on that as well. Not seeing anything, nothing's loose. Looks great. Looks like I do have some sort of chunk of something here. Looks like a piece of piston. So that's a little bit alarming. I'll double check that when we get in there. Again, this is why we do maintenance type items prior to any sort of long-term game. Now that our spring is out, we know that we're no longer under tension. The next tidbit that I'm going to do, I'm going to remove our selector. Cage. Pinion looks great. I don't see any sort of wear, anything that would be alarming for me. These are glued on as well with the set screw. Nothing feels loose. I'll double check here. Nothing feels out of the ordinary on that guy. Looks like our piston is back a little bit. That's fine, because it looks like our tappet is forward. So I'm going to remove the top shell. On the Arcturus, there is a washer that goes against the gearbox with the screws, so be mindful to keep those together as well. I also have a parent clicker in this, so I know that my spring on my trigger is not going to explode out of here as well. Right. So far I'm seeing pieces of plastic from my piston. I'm going to make sure I know where that is coming from. If I have an issue there, I'm going to make sure that that's solved. Like I said, I have a parent clicker, so there's nothing protruding here. Nothing that's going to jump out at me. Looks like we had a few shims on this shell. Just make sure that you keep track of your shims. That'll be a big thing. You don't want to have to technically shim your gearbox again. We're going to pull our anti-reversal latch back out. Looks like nothing's sticking there. Pull our bevel. Remove our tappet plate spring and our compression assembly and just set that aside for now as well. Take our sector, set that aside, and our spur, and set that aside. Again, taking a look, or start from the bottom, work our way back up. I don't see any sort of cracking on my gearbox shell. Again, that's something that you should be able to see superficially on the outside if it is a serious issue. Again, don't see any sort of cracking. V3s have a harder time cracking. They're a little more beefier on the front than V2. On our, looks like none of our bushings seem to be worn or coming out. If they were, two things that you might have to do. You might have to re-epoxy your bushings back in if they are spinning, or if they've been spinning quite a bit, you might actually have to replace your gearbox shell and place new bushings back in with epoxy. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Doesn't look like our sensors have any sort of grease, grime, anything like that on it. Again, it looks like our shell isn't terribly dirty, so that's great. Just set that aside and look at our bevel here. There's a little bit of wear from our anti-reversal latch, but nothing significant. I don't see any sort of chunks missing. Again, this has about 150-ish thousand rounds through it. So far I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. There's a little bit of silver missing. That might have been from prior to kind of upgrading this rifle. Again, nothing, it looks pretty superficial. These are heat treated gears from SoLink, so I'm not really, actually they're the stock Arcturus gears, never mind. So that looks great. This is factory short stroked. So you can see where they removed the 2 or 3 teeth, and they actually removed some from the front as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a 12 tooth sector gear. Again, nothing looks stripped. Everything looks great. And then last but not least, hopefully everything's great. These are 13-1s, as you can see here. Normally it is printed on your spur gear. This gear looks fantastic. There's not even wear on the bottom. Yeah, the gears look great. So I'm going to look at our piston and see what is going on here. I saw chunks, but I'm not seeing any sort of, it's a little bit of wear, but again, nothing substantial. It looks extremely superficial. Those chunks might have been from me not cleaning this off well enough when I tried to lighten. Yeah, I don't feel like the rack isn't flexing. Yeah, nothing's kind of striking me as there's a huge problem here. So delve further in, we can see our nozzle looks great. It's just a Delrin nozzle. I am going to replace our tappet plate spring with a stronger one, help with feeding, and hopefully a little more consistency. Tappet plate looks absolutely fine. I like to try and keep stock tappet plates, hopefully to minimize any sort of feeding issues. Yeah, I'm not seeing really anything. This looks great. Something that I like to do from this point is I'll kind of clean up our gears. I'll clean up our O-rings. I'll throw on, I have a new piston O-ring that I will put on, and then our new tappet plate spring. So yeah, I'm gonna clean up our gearbox real well and then throw it back together. So we are cleaned up, we have our old grease off, and now what I'm gonna delve into is just basically throwing it back together. My go-tos. So for lubing up, Tech T guns have, it's great for just compression parts. Basically the only thing I put it on is O-rings. And then our, basically the main thing that I use for gears, compression, everything else is the Real Deal multi-use grease. First thing I'm gonna do, make sure our MOSFET is down, it's tightened, it's great. There's a little bit of movement up and down just with the way the fitment is. It's the V3 hybrid. Seems to do that. I don't know why they do that, but any more tightening, it's gonna crack. So I don't want to do that. Next thing I'm gonna do, basically take just a little dab, put it on our shaft. I know that my gear isn't going to rub against my gearbox shell, but I'm still going to lubricate my bushing and my shaft of this guy. You can hear how quiet that is. Also lubricate the top shaft, top bushing, and then kind of pack a little bit into our teeth here. Again, I don't want a ton of grease. I'm just gonna do basically half of the teeth and then really pack that all in there. And then as it spins, maybe I'll do this side a little bit. It should lubricate as we go. Next gear, what I'm gonna do actually is our compression. So I'm going to pack our teeth just a little bit, not too terribly much, just kind of surface level on our teeth of our piston. And then our rails. take my new green O-ring, lubricate with some Tech T, slide that on our piston head. Now anything with friction, again, I'm going to use lubricate the inside of our cylinder just enough that we don't have as much heat. Make sure everything fits here. Yep. While I'm at it, since that popped out, I'm going to lubricate my O-rings on my cylinder head. Make sure your window is in the rear. That's all together. Take our nozzle here. I'm just going to use a little bit of Tech T and just kind of rub it on the inside of that. And maybe a little bit on the cylinder head. And make sure we don't have friction. And our air seal is fantastic. I'm a little OCD, so I like to make sure our windows pretty much parallel with our tappet plate. Now, I'm going to grab our sector, lube, again the shaft, and avoiding our sensors, try to lube the bushing, lubricate our teeth. Again, you don't want it to be swimming. It's just going to go everywhere. And set that in and do a few spins. As you can see, it's going to stick to our gears. I'm actually going to remove any extra. And I can see that we don't have too much. It's not flinging off my gears. Actually looks really good. Next, let's lubricate a little bit on the rails of our piston. And then making sure our gears are in the right spot. I like to make sure that my pickup is down, teeth are at our 11 o'clock-ish, 10 o'clock, and then slide in our assembly here. Make sure that our piston rides okay, isn't bunching up. I'll take a little bit of grease and just set it on top. That way, it kind of keeps our shims on our gear. Our tappet return spring. Which normally, rule of thumb, if you look at the spring, it'll be up like a shelf, goes on your tappet, and then up goes flat and down on your post. This is the reason that I like to do a little bit of grease, because sometimes enough grease will actually keep the tappet down. Next, before we throw our last tidbits in here, This is the gear that will fling grease everywhere, so just be mindful. I try not to do a ton on our bevel here, because it genuinely will fling kind of everywhere when that motor starts spinning. I'm also going to take a little bit and just run it along where our anti-reversal latch is. And then last but not least, you want to make sure that where our spur connects on these down here is lubricated as well. I might even take a little bit and just put it on the surface of our anti-reversal latch. Next, our anti-reversal latch spring goes on, goes in, we'll pull back, make sure that we don't forget to lube up our bushing, slide in our gear, and lock it into place. We're also going to lube the top, and then don't forget to lube up our bushings over here. Might be forgotten as well, just make sure to put a surface, a little bit of grease on your tappet plate, and also if you're feeling a little frisky, put a little bit of grease on your spring. Generally, you grease your springs to keep noise down. On your tappet return spring, it's not really going to make a world of difference. Next, we'll throw in that. And make sure that we're not missing any springs, anything else. Again, this is a quick change spring system, so that should be it. We'll throw our lid on here. Try to line up everything. Voila. Next, make sure that your flat screws go to your motor cage, and then make sure that you have washers if you have an Arcturus. Most of these are the same size. There's three that are the same size. Bottom right, back, and bottom mid. These are all the same size, and just tighten them down. If you're feeling like it and you know that you're probably not going to be in your gun for a while, or you know that you're going to use and abuse it, you can put a little bit of blue Loctite on your threads at this point, and that'll keep your gearbox together. Now I know that these are great. I'm going to put, there's one small screw, and that goes in our top. Don't crank them down, but make sure they're snug. And then last but not least, we're going to grease our pinion just a hair. Make sure that your wing goes in the back. Tuck that in and put in your screws. Last but not least, here we have our cover. Make sure that you just tuck it under your trigger, and it should just snap right on in. Like I said, this one's a little old, so make sure your tappet returns. We're good in the rear here. We are all sorted. Our selector moves freely. Something that I will do as well is maybe put a little bit of grease on our selector, making sure to avoid electronics. Okay. Feels great. Grease collects dirt, so we try to minimize as much as possible. But again, we still have to make sure that we are good. Cool. Now, like I said, our wires are a little frayed here, so might take the time to do something about that. But in the meantime, what we can do is positive wire. Sure. I like to lube up my spraying a little bit, again for noise. This is the stock Arcturus spraying. And then I'll put a little bit of grease also in the rear right here. Tuck back. Locking screw, again, just snug enough. Should be it for grease. Sounds great. Now I know that it works. We shoot, everything's great. We're locked back because I have some pre-caulking on. I'm gonna put some heat shrink on our wires and throw it back together. See how we do. All right, peeps. We're on safe. All right. We got 2/8. .76, 0.74, 0.72, 0.74, 0.74, 0.73, 0.75, 0.73, 0.74, 0.76. Sweet. Give it a little binary burst here. Sounds great, dude. Cool. All clear. 0.01 FPS or 0.01 joule variance. So I'm pretty happy with that. I have a indoor spring in this at the moment. So if we're running 3.2s, it's still under a joule. It's way under FPS limits. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty happy with that. So, and this has been a quick kind of video, getting back into the swing of things for videos, AEGs, airsoft related content. So if you guys want to hit me up, absolutely go for it. I'd love to get back with you guys and kind of get in the swing of things for doing airsoft videos. So hit me up if you want to see anything specific. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks. Have a good one.